Now, you win some games and you're going to lose some games. But then there's situations like this where you give games away and it could come to haunt you later on. What's going on, guys? It's Space Cowboy here. Welcome back. I've been pretty busy, so not really having the time to put out these videos as quickly as I would think. And we got to talk about this game versus Green Bay. You know, the Cowboys having a chance to move to 7-2, kick the Packers out of playoff contention, and I did mention it in my preview video that this was not going to be a gimme game. The Packers are fighting for their playoff lives. They're going to do everything they can. And unfortunately, the Cowboys really had this game and they just threw it away, basically. We're going to talk about that and what the layout of the land's looking like and what the Cowboys are going to have to do moving forward and some sneaky suspicions that I have. So to start things off, the Dallas Cowboys blow the 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. I don't care how you want to dice it up. I've seen people blame the offense, special teams, you name it. I'm going to just put it bluntly as possible. If your defense can't stop the run in a situation to where realistically, if you stop the run, you probably win this game and you're giving up these chunk yardages in the run game, I'm sorry, that's on your defense. I'm looking at Dan Quinn. I'm looking at that defense. I understand that there were some injuries here and there, but that's no excuse. Because when you have the pedigree that this defense has, I don't want to hear anything. They keep talking about, okay, we need to fix this. Okay, we need to fix it. But you aren't doing anything. And I get it that injuries can impact things, but clearly outside of Micah Parsons with that linebacking core, Damone Clark, he hasn't been up to speed. LVE, something's up there. It doesn't look like you have enough at linebacker to cover this mess of a run game defense that you have. That's just the truth of the matter. Now, I want to move over to the offensive side of the ball real quickly because I know there were plenty of people blaming the offense for the loss, which I'm going to be honest with you, this was a full team failure, and here's why. You can't spot a team 14 points and expect to win. Now, granted, the Cowboys were in a particular situation where they were up 14 points going into the fourth quarter, and they were able to put themselves in a situation where they could have won the game. But this is why the defense needs to close things out, number one, but your offense needs to be able to do with what's working. Now, the overtime drive was really interesting because if it wasn't for the phantom hold, and I'm not trying to put this on the refs because at the end of it all, you can't put yourself in these situations, especially against certain opponents. And you know what I've been talking about if you've been following me for that long. The Dallas Cowboys put themselves in that position, and, people are going to be upset. Oh, well, this is how the game... It doesn't matter, man. If you do your thing and run the ball, and I get it, there were some instances where it was like, you're trying to do something, and there were some good plays here and there by the Packers defense, but still, you can't spot a team 14 points, especially when you have a chance early to go up 14-0 and kind of put them out of their misery. And there was a point where it felt like, okay, you have them, and you just let them get back into it. So that overtime drive, kind of to circle back to that, my main thing is that when you look at what's going on, they were running the ball damn well, like 7 yards a clip, basically. And so the draw play was really the Cowboys' best play. And if it wasn't for the holding call on Connor McGovern, the Cowboys get to around the 30-25, and odds are they win that game. It really felt like the Dallas Cowboys were going to do something in that overtime period because it felt like the Patriots game like last year. Okay, it goes to overtime. The Cowboys make a stop, but in this case, they got the ball first, and it just stalled. What irks the heck out of me, guys, being real with you, is that we have these penalties that happen at timely situations, and some of them are ridiculous. And Jalen Tolbert, man, costing the Cowboys a first down and that whole mess. I don't think Jalen Tolbert should see the field anymore. Jalen Tolbert cost the Cowboys in that game with that, but also the holdings, the inability to really lean on the run. The Cowboys ran the ball 30-plus times, and I felt like they should have ran it more. I don't know why Dak Prescott has to pass the ball 40-something odd times. I can understand it in the certain part of the game where you were down and you had to do the 2-minute drill. And there were moments the pass was working. I'm not trying to sit here and act like they were terrible like the whole way through. But then when you go back and you watch some of the concepts and what happened on those interceptions, it was really bad how those came to be. The first interception that was in the red zone, that wasn't good, man. The fact is knowing how that play was developing, you should have probably thrown that out, and just took the 3 points. If I'm being honest with you, take the 2-score lead early. But you try to force it, and I understand it's one of those spot throws where you're throwing it and you're expecting your guy to be there. And this is something where I look at Schultz and I'm like, man, you have to cut that route earlier. And this is something that I've had a problem with him and Lamb for some time now. But there were plays they made that made up for it, and I get that, but still, these are things that cost your teams wins. And when you look at the Lamb interception, the one that Dak was throwing over the middle, the problem is I think he ran the wrong route, because when you look at how the play was developing, if Lamb runs a dig, it's a first down. He's wide open in the middle of the field, but he didn't. And lo and behold, it leads to another interception and another 7 points for the Packers. Now, no excuse there. You can't, again, spot a team 14 points and expect to win. But something flipped where the offense started really doing its thing. Tony Pollard got into the end zone. He was running very well and effective, over 100 yards. Dak and Lamb were doing some things there. They were cooking. And I mean, look, Lamb has started to show up and show out, and I can't complain, man. He's looking great. But again, those mistakes that I mentioned are going to be what costs you some games. Now, what kind of irks me is that there's a lot of people now upset with the situation we're in. And let me just kind of walk back, because you know me, I'm Mr. Pessimist. So let me try to be as lightning as possible on the whole thing. The Dallas Cowboys walked into a game where they were playing against a desperate team that was trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. Oh, well, space. They were on a 5-game losing streak. I get that, and I'm not trying to excuse that. This was a game you should have won, given with what happened. We're 195-0 with you being up 14 points in the fourth quarter. Now that's 195-1 thanks to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But the NFL is any given Sunday or any given week, however you wish to phrase it. You had a game against the with the Buffalo Bills and the Vikings where it looked like the Bills were going to win that game. They fumble the ball on the goal line. That thing goes to overtime and they lose. And they were up 17 points at the freaking half. They only scored 3 points in the entire second half and overtime. And they also threw a, costly interception in overtime. Then you have games that just happen on Monday. The Eagles losing to the Commanders. So I'm not trying to sit here and act like that this loss doesn't mean anything. However, I am aware as someone that watches the NFL, and if you watch the NFL, you know sometimes these things happen. I'm not shocked that the Cowboys lost this game. I believed that they were going to have a letdown loss type of thing where we're like, what the hell's going on with this team? Now, the question is, what happens from here? You got that gut check loss, and that happened last year. I felt like the gut check loss was against Denver, and you kind of had a mini slide towards the middle of the season. So the thing is, how do you respond? You have Minnesota coming up next week, and then you have the Giants game on Thanksgiving 4 days later. Now, if it were my opinion, I would rather lose this Packers game to know that we would win the next 2 games, because those games are way more important than this Packers game. Now, that I could say that, and it's going to age horribly, but the fact is you have 2 games against top-level NFC opponents. Whether you like it or not, yes, the Giants are included in that fixture of teams that are in the echelon of NFC teams that can maybe do something. Now, with the Vikings, they do have a stout running game. They have Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, the best receiver in the NFL currently. And it's going to be tough, man. But the key thing is that this is going to be one of those primetime games at 4 o'clock, which that kind of goes in your favor because typically Kirk Cousins doesn't do well in prime time. But also Kirk Cousins doesn't really play well against the Cowboys. He's 2-8 versus them. Kind of similar to how, Aaron Rodgers has won many times against us. So if I had to put my money on it, I would say that expect the Cowboys to bounce back and beat Minnesota. Now, that isn't a guarantee, but the reason I would be saying that is because the Cowboys do this type of thing. They lose a game that they're supposed to win, and then they win a game no one's expecting. And I guarantee no one's going to expect them to go into Minnesota against the 8-1 Minnesota Vikings and do their thing. But I'm telling you, man, don't be shocked if something happens to where the Cowboys come out of Minnesota 7-3. Now, if they lose, okay, but this is why I say the regular season doesn't matter, guys. And this is not me trying to excuse what the record is. So you're 6-3. You really think that this team wouldn't be 6-3 after Dak Prescott went down. And everyone's like, oh, that's it. And for me, it's all about playing right football at the right time. We know this with the 49ers last year. We know this with Tampa Bay from their championship. There's a thing out there where if you are playing good football at the right time, you are going to do well in the postseason. Now, again, it's any given Sunday, so anything can happen, but typically the formula is you have to play your best football going into December. And if the Cowboys can do that, I'm not going to complain over what's going on. But right now, they need to tighten the ship. They have 8 more games. I think that you look at their schedule, it is favorable towards the end. I can see them going 12-5, 11-6, which again, it doesn't matter. Just you have to go out and do your thing. If you lose these games, it's going to make it harder to make the postseason. Right now, the Cowboys have a 98% chance to make the postseason. I believe if they win a couple more games, they'll be fine, but you need to take care of business. You had a chance to really put yourself in the driver's seat of your destiny. Philadelphia lost, and I know a lot of people are kicking themselves, but guys, anything can happen. For all we know, we can end up losing the rest of our games. Philadelphia can end up losing we don't know. I honestly don't know. So I would expect the Dallas Cowboys to bounce back next week. We'll talk about that later in the preview video for the Minnesota Vikings, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.